We, the brown and well-educated immigrants and children of immigrants, may keep to ourselves because we know the tenacity and the fragility of these dreams. We know America's welcome is always conditional. We may be successful, but are always uneasy. We know those bullets are always meant for us. Srinivas Kuchibalta's death wasn't abnormal. It was part and parcel of the system of colonial domination. Bishop 17. The country by Kuchibalta's the community of climate is hostile with me. The national be disintegrated from racial foundation can also use of it. So I didn't have a treating those that kill the lead race of humanity. Indian Americans have been developed by the empire regarded for productive logic systems in relation to white norms to establish the political projects necessitating creating structure. The purpose ground that even if moments of salvation are possible. Ground flesh is gratuitous, reduced, and ritual over the West, requires the death and suppression of deviant brown booties and the death from any to civil colonization of India, turn attention to British will take light, Britain and its post humanity brothers will went to graphic, and to establish a colonial pride, fashion, media, representation, colonizing, property, racial, give, enforcing, producing, brown laws, and producing one and day, participating, rather than shopping, and life, and the British, we push when we say around the world, all days, the college open as well, racially, and colonial warfare, the public fitness, to the pleasure, and brothers, your country, Hitler, also over color, taking the dog for 20 seconds, just artificially did this, and he showed you don't make currency for isolation, was all this kidding, everybody killing each other, and they're killing all day, typically getting salvation despite all that he is fleshing into people, sending about running, was the sentence of any resident function as a state job, as well as and rest form as a white supremacy deals are participating in the gratuity and gratuity practice enjoyed to practice the brutality along how to see to participate with assurance that salvation in front and gratuity this is and RB or condition of invincibility union pursue the balance where last and for device war vote after counter-racial scriptures that upends the narrative instead of focusing on brown peril we create the white peril is a rhetorical device that centers the hazards of white supremacy built 24 the sharp proliferation of brown peril salvation versus the bomb peril we can also create this wrong self agreement with the peril the expression of racism and the including critique bar over more perils the racial scriptures that cover your classification of colonial west predicated on discourses among the serious element one person goes fully the general civilization of white person but war species versus discourse no bit of just like the section of every piece of white peril but like industrial commercial social and future our predominant political that Congress purpose of environmental deprivation you can have to get out against it those issues version and power all those people that recognize your obligation equally and if it's highlights better because of resist white supremacy imagining where real things say we do as a true as a math as a true player of colonize the counter-racial service key event including resist the racial scriptures of the empire serve to oppress people and hide them from finding salvation only using different counter-scriptures can has the ability to resist hegemonic power structures through turning it outside only 14 which is how the logic compares a link we see there different projects operating at the same time studying scripts of the nation counter the challenge living domination to go to link the birth and this is legislation limit birth and not only economic research and enter each time as the book has hidden power racial connection and impact of our structural forces are these processes occur over and over racial differences has been key division of working class capitalism for excluded workers lead to distinctions among the parties common oppression and tension between national political and much unique racial people for counters and well like we see parts of relations you counters do not have a functional high level but give me a present day legislation or so they counters position on conversation power counters should be resistant realm refusal does counter racial because are critical they function as a relational collective strategy it towards the shared processes of racialization into cohesion which enables grassroots movements to fight against the dominant system of power which makes it a prerequisite for any anti-state action dominant represented by racial unite actors and collaborate on next recognition of commonality distribution use of injustice security against the job of resistance these counters not only but they also prevent the groups in the city of research as the government to advance advocacy of the challenge of government logic one example back in Chinese America's interpretation against the next year connection to the instrument impression of the year and within the social relations of against solidarity but also this network of policy solidarity to collective action because it is one of the group of people that represent democratic sense of sure the first nation people of color that are versus the process that can people of color divided into groups like this were not dominance just under the advantage of logic and attacks against the logic power the resolution is a discourse of over determination forecloses counter narratives normalizes racialized language and policing and reproduces epistemic inferiority through forced code pitching how can I even talk about news when anti-British overturn like law go because the position students like we use the process counter narratives through books on prejudice discussion which multiple people represent countries should be freely about counter racial companies that are essentially anticipated the discriminate but that's why good advancing class are sitting even now on a unit as language that includes to race rather than avoiding just analysis the rest of the service on and we should propose even though we don't say that we're just we are to sound like people so much analysts are just blaming so that countries to people like because we're becoming and every kind of interaction she uses over which understand for overall mality does as soon as code switch between A and SE countries and regularly that is over and also education understanding relations to narrative positive white language that was written about racism and occurs fellow build up complex between racial identity but also encourage critical submission represented her represented the form of hurting our fight narratives and speech and laws that's why I ask the question teaching those the ambassador that as soon as let you believe that the way that they talk about this is making them students as a race version counter narratives and coaching as essential because what's attention challenge dominant views attention or normalized status quo by erasing our power is a direct manifestation of white supremacy ability for the rhetoric trades origin of Western valuable blood and by white immigration especially up here legitimate on the social manifestation normalization and which publicly discourse shape for mechanisms supported to her racial but the surface of value to cover logic citation or other discourse that comes to the Asian of the country that the masculinity the zealous and leaving an uncompliance with this for listening to the interaction focus on the DC center rhetoric while elucidating searches of power the desire for fairness and combination is part and parcel and not the anti-brand moving to her listen to her where rights to introduce the consultation parents on combination and limiting under job Muslim trouble which over rights discourses brought the to national hierarchy barriers literature forcing people to abandon their identity in the door into white norms and causes fear and injury which severs individual from the history causing self-resentment and it circulates as well Sunday bringing one thing about adversity this is manifest name we are invited to start circumstances he just has new issue or his identity there's an in my name person so that just being vague or predict our parents in the subject also we treat our friends and government. This is how we assimilate from taking who appears we are. Yes, it's a letter to similar position losing a day or many to harm. It's just not time resist the dominant resistance assimilation to attack the non-11 others so the other her and she was presented by and her longing or women's she's not able to her solidarity rewarding stories around nice creases necessary change for justice to do to kind of social justice to motivate filling so stories of people rights and dominant stories uplifting people at such accepting laws kind of social represent equality imperative the legitimate knowledge production.
How does the affirmative's counter-racial scripts challenge the broad, I guess, like systems of oppression that you've described earlier on?
Yeah, a racial script is something like when you do racism in an educational space. A counter-racial scriptures flips that on its head.
Okay, wait, what racist action have we performed?
You haven't given a speech yet.
Okay, so like, what like is this affirmative rejecting?
We are rejecting anti-brownness.
Okay, so what anti-brownness has occurred so far that has required rejection?
Yeah, the Bow 24 evidence talks about how Indian people have been in a state of always getting killed, and other people see pleasure in anti-brownness.
Okay, but how does the affirmative solve that? How does like promoting counter-racial scripts in this debate solve that broad system of oppression?
Yeah, it creates strategies and helps people identify ways to unite
okay,
with
so
other people.
asking for like the ballot in this round is a strategy for combating racism that occurs in other educational spaces.
Oh, we'll make more arguments on your presumption arguments. That's not only it.
Okay,
also,
well,
that's a defense of our method.
Okay, so your method is to ask for the ballot in order to combat racial violence in education.
Wait, what? The voting affirmative invokes a counter-racial scripture.
Okay, so what does it mean to invoke a counter-racial scripture?
Yeah, Thomas 19 says that once you invoke a counter-racial scripture, it creates commonality between different identities, which can let you have things like solidarity and be able to work together with other people to fight like racism.
Why is voting affirmative necessary for working with people?
We say that affirming counter-racial scriptures is key for doing that, which I explained above. But the Duda evidence says that counter-storytelling, which is telling the stories of people that have been marginalized, is key for decolonial ethics because it stops people. It legitimizes.
Wait, okay, so I guess like how do counter-racial scriptures in this round lead to like broader forms of collaboration? Like it seems like am forced to like negate your app. Like how does this lead to like us collaborating?
Yeah, you can collaborate with our app by giving us like constructive criticism, i.e. reading other Ks saying that, we can improve in certain areas.
That seems pretty adversarial. How's that collaborating?
That's not,
well, I mean,
okay. If we are in a group project and I say, you can improve slightly here, that's not me like, I like hate you. That's me trying to get it to work better.
Okay, sure. Let's talk about the empire requiring redemptive logics of assimilation to white norms to establish the public. I guess like why is this like always true like universally like in all situations?
Yeah, ever since the Indians have been colonized by the British, they have seen enjoyment in anti-brownness, i.e. creating movies in where Indian people are gratuitously murdered and just getting enjoyment based off of Indian people being gratuitously killed.
Okay. I'll take prep. First on is Topicality, result is legislative, LCA 5 legislative instrument for policies used to term resolved, and moral requires implementation. Alexander 1852, moral act ought to be performed contradiction to say act was moral, yet no obligation moral ought not to be done. This idea is the very concession of morality. Possession is physical control. Lambert 19, possession is physical holding property in one's power. That means physical dominion and control. A nuclear weapon is a physical device releasing energy for fission, fusion, doors, 25 nuclear weapon. Device designed to release energy as well as fission, fusion, or combination. Vote -1, limits, representation, advantages, blow up, advantage gun by allowing offense off of any phrase, word, or representation of the 1AC. 2, ground. Human offense spikes every topic counterpoint and dissent. They can craft specific non-resolutional natures to every critique which we can never prepare against. Violation, they never defended the resolution. They only are offense, debates competitive nature, instead of race or moral truisms, as a predictable limited stasis, which undermines accessibility and contestation. The affirmative has not met the burden of proving the resolution true. Rules are inevitable, they abide by speech types. It wouldn't let me read a 10-minute turnout. That weighs every argument, presumes a chance of first and a ballot can only rectify the negative chance of victory. Lack of fairness, ensures losses are internalized as screws rather than ideology, which overcoats every decision made in this round, proved by the fact that they did not disclose the affirmative, resulted in expected us to respond to the 1C, and are going to make strategic decisions on the 1 error. Turns the case. The affirmative obviates iteration necessary to foster in-depth research necessary to expert advocacies out of this space. Otherwise, they can get outmaneuvered in the courtroom. Independently, it turns the app. Well-prepared opponents create sparring partners, failure to iterate produces false positives. So vote negative on presumption. T is not racist. 1 participation. Unfair games are unappealing to play. And small schools do not have the resources to negate an unlimited topic. Big teams like Harker will exploit an unlimited topic to grade you every round. 2, exportability. We agree that racism is bad and that imperialism should be rejected. The question is, what should we do about it? Only reproduce advocates that can defend their positions and create material change. 3, no link. They could read their affirmative top out. And so far as the negative, they have to rejoin it. 4, content. Topicality affects content, not people. people. We would exclude briefs, policy affirmatives as well. Topicality does not mean your arguments are unimportant, but rather says a limited topic is a necessity for engagement. 5. It's not an imposition, but a negotiation about debates rules. Switch side solves. Reading the critique can stay bad with material links ensures a robust defense of engagement with the state accessing their scholarship. They could read arguments about how nuclear weapons forward a form of colonial practice that harms brown people in order to solve the in order to access their scholarship. Their preamps are all wrong. Bogan is about the discourse of fitness, not fairness, which solely levels the playing field for all. We don't establish a hierarchy or claim anyone as desirable or not, but say that everyone should have an equal chance of engaging in the round. Topicality also doesn't force anyone to abandon their identities. You don't have to believe what you read. And so reading a soft left argument solves. Next up is a cupcake. Reading is a market product. Voting affirmative materially empowers capitalist elites and dilutes revolutionary energies. 124 discourse as accused ideological complicity standards of security systems of potential counter way oppression of herd of darkness by substituting number of words of revolutionary part. They reveal truth to people with the rest of positive running consciousness while there's a base how to follow over ways way from political critiques when recall about the alignment or waiting leading to counter the presence of family ideology they complete critical choice discourse reduces the interest mixing because always discourse of partial because makes the voice only those who can be able to do critical narrative critic operationalizes the score the products of the critical liberty function and penalty the market critiques exist in a penalty of a critic with each desiring the critic to dominate the field like a brand. They have lack of concrete demand on state plans effective solutions to neoliberal capitalism garbage trying to markets over limits favored over counter hegemonic product contest capitals largest scales politics driven by pessimism although still changes possible interfere with grand neighbors interly set neoliberal common sense and fostering resistance from discomfort for the minority inability in a vision alternative world. The future has been ceded to the right. Unifying narrative was hard to identify by design parties. Rhetoric progress was defeated by neoliberalism. The absence of concrete demands was a palpable festivity. Capitalism is dying, and the only question is whether or not it will be replaced by radical democracy or political fascism. Extinction intelligence for world billionaires, for the climate catastrophe, balloons living crossing planet fires, region species on the verge of extinction, libraries, acknowledgement that all are my non-extinction or sameness, but connecting with others for community service, and building power, solidarity, social back to reach social labor movements, and political movements, the paradigm of resistance, but it's unclear whether will supersede and what the next will be better or worse. Resisting political conscious crimes, revolutions have the power, influence, or lots of institutions, long standards, these conceiving ourselves as interestingly about can understand all we can to provide recognizing we are entitled to such transformative solidarity, achieving universal suffering in our workday, they will for safety, but voting rights and linking all militant and protest movements, and the college that it binds women, queer, and trans people as well as workers and debtors who work out of solidarity, emphasizes identities and its benefits, while grief transformative solidarity is to benefit everyone, mighty selfless, this culture appeals to benevolence, inference, or allyship, place onus on an individual rather than collective, and equate to the task of political action and the goal. The alternative is Marxist Party, Content 23, a Marxist Party, reunified consciousness, justice, accountability, and collectivity of knowledge, all fight together in one of action struggle, investigation of capital rules, and service self you are involved in collectively, one scale of capitals producing, giving racial oppressions, deteriorating conditions, workers, life will organize workers to help understand necessity of political demands, fascism, and starving, and conflicts, arsenal, plans, self-administration, organization, reading Marxist theory and history, toward mobilization. On the first off, I forgot the intro, the need not rejoin on topical apps. Now go to case. Vote negative on presumption. 1. The affirmative must resolve the material harms presented throughout their 1AC. That's best because the 1AC is shifted below of critique, which requires changing the burden of solvency. 2. Negation turns are often carbo. 3. Activists winning adversarial reams of root cause materials address adversarial strategies of change has consequences such as factionalization to interpret race standard presented for strategy as an antagonist of adversarial strategy to reach the diminishing returns. 3. Currency. Potential is pacified by the lack of any realistic economy of debate, co-opting research, lacking swap, and complaining practice with politics. Ballot is not key to rewarding them. You could do so through higher speaks or the RFD or out of round. It's also unsustainable because it teaches debaters the only strategy for combating racism should be winning rounds, which is obviously an untenable strategy, especially because debaters will inevitably graduate. Materiality is key, physical connection theory, versus Lucas ethical commitment, and knowledge being examined. The classes but fostering reaching out to the policy community, basing the opportunities to further practices of reduced violence. Critics should not only be publicizing novel policy needs to, if it's such political, practical alternatives, a lack of an explicit general limits or impact and validates existing order alternatively, has the potential to rejuvenate critical scholarship without being co-opted by the policy, will the chance to be how to make an impact. Resist idealistic calls for appetite of purity, mutual 22 maximalization, maximalism, considering anything else, the most idealistic is habitual refusal to engage with people not to the priest, arguments about principles of solidarity, method, always embrace certain policies, positions that task alignment, and idealistic demands and capable of purpose taken people's and normal aspirations for economy to assist our way how so we don't leave power on the table or reach excessive rule with the need for coalitions that share but through not identical goals. Existential threats are truly universal, not boosted security as whiteness. 022 processes universal impatience for public communities, a particle life itself being secret stop hating including universality considered by the future of whiteness is not falling basic of a source of condition universality. This being theorists must directly get to force non universal viability that original long-term immunization of the apocalypse. Root cause progress is possible. Hostile 7 pain 21 racism does not result from prejudice individuals with structures that disadvantaged groups. Studies statistics and evaluations can be limited by lean participants who reinterpret and voting can also scores mobility will establish biases less stable, more easily tracks changes all redirected attention solutions bias is social phenomenon that passes under rather than residing inside of residue bias because an individual changing causes more effective many applied to institutions versus policies that disadvantage groups change involve political policies that changing bias and behavior policies that reduce inequalities and could increase the quality system voting likely to change attitudes. I'll send this after my god, this file's not opening. What the hell? Fiat is good. Mickey 97 debated for some other social criticism because the basic game provides you how to win such criticisms are intended to lead such criticisms and prerequisite policy change, whether objected by official or member specified agent, based ignoring the fourth agenda, the possibility when he's not able to agenda directly discuss what the US should do. Okay, I'll send this out.
Why do you debate?
Because I want to win.
Okay, you want to win. Why do you want to win?
I don't know. I think that it would be very enjoyable for me as a person to win. I think that we're all here because we want to win. I mean, like, debate is a competition.
Okay, so so are you reading my mind? How do you know that I am here only to win?
Well, we think that the only motivation that's intrinsic to the ballot is the desire to win. For example, like, even if you have other desires like hanging out with friends or like engaging in research, those can be done like outside, like those don't require the ballot in order to like realize them, which means that only competition and desire for people to win by playing the game is intrinsic to the ballot.
What are the warrants for fairness outweighing?
Yeah, we have a lot. First, debate is inherently competitive, which means that everything is overdetermined by competitive incentives. Every argument presumes a fair assessment. Lack of fairness causes losses to be internalized as screws. We think that because debate is unique and because it's a game, fairness is intrinsic to debate's role, and it's a unique motivating factor among participants that is tied to the ballot, which means that our win rate, i.e. our ability to win the round and have an even playing field, is the only impact that can be rectified by a ballot.
Sure. Oh, why can the ballot only solve for fairness? Like, what's the warrant in the 1 and C for this?
Well, because fairness is directly tied to the chance of victory.
Wait, can you give me a quote in the 1 and C, like a quote in the 1 and C where you say this? Like, because you're just...
Quote, a ballot can only rectify the negative chance of victory.
Okay, that's not a warrant. That's an assertion.
Well, our argument... Well, I mean, like, theoretically, anything could just be an assertion. Like, a warrant is like a claim that itself requires a warrant. But our argument is that... Our argument is that because... our argument is... Well, we've made an argument that everyone wants to win, and that the decisions we make are overcoded by competitive incentives, and because the ballot is directly tied to our chance of victory, it's the only thing that fairness is the only impact intrinsically tied to the ballot. It's the only motivating factor. We also made an argument on case about how I can't quote it to you because I extempted it, but we made an argument on case about how other factors can be solved out, such as affirming I forgot the exact word, but rewarding stories of roundness can be done outside of the ballot, such as in the RFD by giving higher speaks, etc., which means that only fairness is intrinsic to debate's role.
Sure. Okay. Switch side debate solves. What would your model debate look like when I'm affirming?
Well, the affirmative would defend the resolution. The negative could disagree with the affirmative.
What if I don't agree with the resolution? Would I be forced to?
Well, I mean, like, our argument is that being ideologically flexible could be good. I mean, it breaks down dogmatism.
Okay, so like being
you don't have to believe in what you read in debate. Our argument is you can read arguments you disagree with.
Okay.
Like, that's the whole premise of switching sides.
Okay, sending it out.
Quote, drop performance is shooting past Kucher the upholding brown knowledge through your ballot is key to prevent fear and murder. That's not due to global white supremacy, requires racialized violence against brown people. They create movies to enjoy brown suffering, drop psychoanalysis, shit frame out all their studies. Now, thus affirm counter-racial scriptures, which reframes whiteness to turn inward, that holds individualization, which kills social energy. That means we solve it in the material as well. Now, the ballot solves first social currency, ballot circulate and shape debate. The one is the hijacks competitive incentives, to where students and coaches respond empirically proven in debate will look slightly different in Zion, the Imperial. Wait, big, never won, you must affirm. Now, double that is wrong. First change, winning presumption means that racism is checked back, which normalizes ballots, then endorse anti-racism, means that double down is infeasible and we will lose every round as for their competitive incentive arguments. Now, we don't have to win subjectivity, we're just going for in-round balance, but the ballots are key because that is what we want. Anything else is paternalism, i.e. I do not want high speaks, we're not micro-affirmations, but just letting us talk about our identity. We're not complete epistemic purity, but maximizing anti-racism to our CRS. We've never claimed our method is perfect, which is why you do the cap. Now, we're not critique of fiat or religion, which means this is totally irrelevant. Psychoanalysis analysis, brings out all of your studies, proves that gratuitous anti-brown ballots is seen through movies and is real. Now, T-frame or counter-script, I'll defend the violation, first erasure, Ethan's attempt to obscure and legitimize brown Peril is the pretext of white supremacy, altering racist discourses can only disrupt racial power. Every time they say the one he was unfair or shouldn't be evaluated, it's another play to secure white futurity. That's both. Second, conformity DA, forcing brown debaters to assimilate into white norms like topical advocacy and definitions causes severe injury where individuals lose their identity and intent to not be arbitrarily punished, only reaffirming self-identity creates enough movement for change. You have to abandon your identity because you can't read the app. Now, fairness. The ballot can't solve fairness. This is just an assertion. The two in our will be new. It can only solve for our offense, which is the things about racism, fairness. First, materiality. Fairness is intelligible, but racism racism politically felt, but it's wrong. First, research is literature. The equitable win rates are impossible. Now, fairness paradox is wrong. You usually rely on the judge not hacking against you because of your skill code, which sees its authority not internalized, but losses aren't internalized, but they are seen as educational opportunity. They say T isn't racist, it's racist. First, reading the case as a generic argument solves, which means you can go for the cat case. Second, no, without this kind of racist, we cannot work with other people. Third, cross-applied presumption that valid is key. Fourth, reading racist obviously affects other people, i.e. if you read 6 minutes of microaggressions, I wouldn't like it. Fifth, we say that your side is racist and it causes racism. They say rules of mental, it's a coincidence that we follow speech laws, we say that they are good and fairness is bad. Clash is wrong. First, control the direction. All of our dissents above indicate clash under their model. It reinforces criminal paradox. The supremacy debates erasure, which means you should reject it. They say switch side. We impact on topicality, so switch side. And TVA is totally irrelevant because we see you're racist. And racial gaslighting, Ethan's universalization, accommodation as a sole value. Debate imposes a racist view of debate, denying the ability for individual relation to activity. Impact is racial disassociation, where debaters must leave their identity at the door in favor of a disembodied view of debate. The one he was explicit and cross-sex means that they cannot win in a low link to this dichotomy. The resolution of the appropriate collaboration solves limits because you can port your app and just treat it to the next. Anything else forces debaters to coach to language foreign to them, causes self-hatred. That's godly. Now on the can't do both. You all can't overcome the link. It can't overcome the status quo. Turn to each. You do you, we do us. No link for sequency. The app rejuvenates social energy by breaking down Superman's discussion that destroys agency. Absent that restoration, racialized bodies don't have the energy to engage in the anti-capitalist resistance in the first place. Second, materiality. The inputs of our politics are material. Proven by the examples of the Chicanos, First Nation POC, etc. from the 1AC. The alt fails first. For example, counter-racist discourses are key to creating communities amongst races, which causes solidarity and unified attacks against logic of power. Otherwise, communism failed. That's Thomas. Second, cool optimism. Maoist parties are violence against dollars. Product 25. Others don't have $5 against to be settled under proportion system leaders cash. Others do products by that about the leader failing all their contemporaries making center but she's left that making shit off the on-premise. The discrimination attracting dollars feel very classical. The party system parties run by government and treacheries. Third, assimilation. The party cross conformity to a single universal identity, which erases racialized experience under the pretext of class unity, causing psychic combat. Some do for autonomy. Race is constitutive, not a derivative of class unity, as the latter delegitimizes legit liberation. That's about now no state phobia. We don't foreclose state action, but it is a sequencing question of our method, which provides the social energy for our brown people to engage in state as a prerequisite. Go back to topicality. They say bogus at fitness. No, the evidence is really good talking about racial science and how in the past people have said that brownness is bad and then use that as a reason to delete all brownness and saying, and you can read the evidence, it's really good. It says that competition over determines things, and when we invoke competitive things, it causes brown knowledge to be absolutely destroyed. Topicality forces you to, yeah.
Topicality is a voting issue for fairness. Debate is unlike other outlets, and students are burdened with the necessity to refute, disagree, and operate inside competitive chains. Other venues already afford the chance to collaborate, but only debate affords the start terms of disagreeing or losing. That means debate is incoherent, absent the resolution's role for the negative. It is the only impact that's solved by the ballot. We're reading topicality, not framework. The one can advocate whatever methodology they would like, but the only win condition is being a topical burden of proof. Fairness must outweigh, one, it's intrinsic. They have already acknowledged and accepted the intrinsic role of the negative. They chose to introduce the affirmative in a tournament that requires us to rejoin it, expected us to respond, and respected speech science. Competition is the reason why the hard private coaches go for drunk arguments and engage in the limelight rather than dropping on and discussing epistemics with friends. Even if there are other motivations, they are not unified by the ballot because you can do so through other means, which will be down below. But it's a primordial precondition acknowledged by both sides. If not, unfairly vote negative while endorsing their scholarship. It comes logically higher even if they win their offense, and the validity of any impact is determined by evaluating those impacts fairly. Second, it turns the case. Affirmatives won't strive for the most accurate model, but the one that proves every critique or no links every dissent. The topic is key for setting ground that is both controversial and negotiable. The process of condensation is a precondition for any benefit of debate because it creates an incentive to engage objections head on rather than attempting to find small flaws in the reasoning. That turns the case. You cannot actualize your benefits if you defuse ballots against unprepared opponents, but only if you are able to defend your advocacy against well-prepared criticism. The white supremacy, the counter-interpretation is unpredictable. I'm pretty sure they didn't even read it, which means that they can defend it, which means that their model turns debate into a free-for-all where you can debate whatever methodology, whatever advocacy you like. It's not tied to any definition, and they did not defend nuclear weapons, which means that none of our generics apply because we're not prepared to defend them even if they do exist. The white supremacy dissent is wrong. Our topicality is not white supremacy. Limits are good for accessibility. Drop that big schools exploited unlimited topic to breaking every round, creating an unstable research burden for brown debaters. Topicality is also about content, not people, and conflating the two is wrong because it's bad because it results in authenticity testing and judges testing judgment ballots on people's identity, which is obviously problematic. It's also a negotiation, not imposition. You're free to win a counter-interpretation if you would like. The conformity, and also they dropped that topicality as a referendum on content, not people, because we just think that limits are good for condensation. We would exclude previous policy positions as well. It's not tied to any particular identity. The conformity dissent is wrong. Classify everything above. You don't have to believe what you read, and reading the critique on the negative solves. Tying arguments to identity is bad, which is an above, and you can also find ways to read things like a soft left affirmative in order to gain access to your literature. We just think that your literature has to be tied to the resolution in order for the negative to have a fair shot at engaging. The 2NR is not new because we've made all these claims in the 1NC, but we get new impact calculus. That's obviously fair because we didn't know what the 1 year's impacts were against topicality was, but regardless, most of this is in the 1NC. You can check your flow. Ballot only solving for racism is wrong. Tying racism to the ballot is bad. people the only punishment for performing a racist action is the ballot, and it's obviously unsustainable because people are inevitably going to graduate. That means out of form solve better. You can contact TAB, talk to parents or coaches. You can even say that we were racist in the RFD in order to confront us. All of those are better means because anything else creates the conflation of bad faith. Global win rates are wrong. It's about our chance of winning going into the round. Relying on the judge not hacking is wrong. Hacking would be unfair, which means that our fairness offense presumes that seeing as education is wrong because competitive incentives obviously overdetermine all the actions we take, which is done above, and it is once again the reason why they engage in the limelight and wrote new instead of doing other things that could, for example, be better, like setting the affirmative for us to engage better. Reading case fail because it's not specific to the affirmative, which is done above. We are unable to offer constructive criticism if they did not disclose the affirmative beforehand. We're working with other people is wrong. Cooperation is straightened by competition, which is done above. Radicalization is wrong. You can't spur movements. Our side is not racist. It's not racist. If it was, you could read a critique answer. You could read a critique against. If the affirmative was racist, you could read a critique on the negative. But once again, we never engage in a racist action in the round, which is done above because topicality is obviously not a racist action. It is just saying that limits are necessary. Coincidence. They say it's a coincidence respecting speech times, but that is irrelevant because our argument is about the ballot, and obviously they want the ballot if they want to win. Otherwise, you can put them down while reducing the scholarship, which is above. Clash is wrong. Racist clash is wrong. Because of no subjectivity shift, which will be on the case page. Racial gaslighting is wrong. It's the same thing as disembodiment, which is done above. They don't solve limits because any truism can affirm, which is done on the counterintuitive debate. Below the overview, racial science and people saying brownness is wrong. Their empirics are not contextualized to our deployment of topicality. It's not our argument. It's not about brown knowledge, but not excluding brown knowledge. We just think you have to contextualize it to the resolution. No, the K not going for it. Can see the permutation. There's no RVI. There's no voter or whatever because we had to read this K as to see what stuck against an affirmative that obviously wasn't topical and without functional limits, especially because it was disclosed new. Now the case we've in fact turned the affirmative method. It results in cruel optimism. The affirmative has described a psychoanalytic structure about how the empire treats people. Obviously, debate is not going to afford the ability to do so. Anything else results in cruel optimism and the judge thinking that they're casting ball in order to solve racism, but not actually resulting in any change. Our Vistoka evidence says that theorizing is bad. It results in ivory tower criticism and philosophical abstractions rather than finding ways to solve material violence, which turns all their offense. They conceded that the factionalist form of debate where we have to contest the affirmative means that cooperation is impossible and we can't cooperatively engage racism in a competitive setting, which obviously impact turns the introduction of the affirmative in this debate space. This also impact turns any of the racism offense are going to go for on topicality, which means that you can also classify that us reading the CAPK is wrong because they have contextualized leaks, and psychoanalysis is obviously wrong. Our pain evidence says that racial biases are malleable. We found studies which empirically disproves their theoretical claims, which means that even if we don't know why their claims are wrong, we know that they simply are, which answers their arguments. Our pain evidence says that neurological analysis says that our beliefs can be shaped. Now, no subjectivity shift. Our evidence is really good. That hijacking competitive studies fail. It results in people reading the case for disingenuous reasons and disingenuous reasons, and we did not engage in any racist activity, which means that there's nothing you can reject in the first place. And endorsing anti-racism can be done through other means in the ballot. And they dropped our Novae's evidence, which says that if we disagree and can't choose our opponents, then we ignore, explain it away, or discredit the source. But regardless, they didn't go for any education offense. Any true extrapolation would be due.
Throw away your preconceptions about what arguments are good and what arguments are bad. It's game over. They double dropped the poem of Srinivas Kuchibhotla in the 1AC and 1IR. I read a poem and said that you have to micro-affirm me. That was Dada and Sundu. Anything else causes racism in the debate community, which outplayers any of their offense. Now, they say it's cruelly optimistic. No, drop counterfactual. Once we read the affirmative, people start reading the affirmative even more because it is a winning argument. They say it's disingenuous. This is an assertion without a warrant, but even if it is disingenuous, it's still good because we can learn strategies to getting better. They say it doesn't solve material violence. Yes, it does. It teaches us strategies to moving forward, which is why they didn't read any arguments. They say it's a factionalist form of debate. No, you can read constructive criticism like the CAPK and teach us how to make our model better. They say psycho is wrong. I'm not going for ontology. We're just saying that racism is bad. They say people read. They say we ignore and don't go for education. Choosing your identity outweighs. So even if you are to do something racist, I should have the agency to choose what I want to do, and which solves all of your offense. Now go to T framework. The problem with T is that the 1 and C did not have an internal a link. You would not let them read a new link into 2NR. Cross-text was clear when I asked them if the ballot solves fairness. They just went on a rant about how warrants are meaningless. Dropped from the 1AR that only the ballot can solve our forms of racism because of the counterfactual argument which was dropped inside of the 1AR. But either way, extend the conformity to that, forcing Brown debaters to abandon their identity the second they walk in through the door causes spirit injury, where individuals try to assimilate to fight white norms and attempt to not be arbitrarily punished, which causes individuals to lose their identity. Only reaffirming self-identity can create social energy in order for the benefits of brownness to be recognized. Now, they say across the line, they say big teams do research for it. No, KVK solves. You can read generics, which is dropped, but we should be able to choose what we want to do, which is explained above. They say TS and OG. They say content is different. No, if they drop that if you didn't read like 6 minutes of microaggressions, I would want to leave the activity. So context does matter, which is an argument dropped on the Clash page. They say TS negotiation. No, even if it is a negotiation, if you're forwarding a racist model that forces people to leave their identity at the door, that is a battle debate where people will just get microaggressed against because they dropped in round violence. They say trying your argument into identity is bad. No, drop every single reason why it was good, which is on the Sandu argument. This is just an assertion. They say you can get your literature. Soft left doesn't matter because I don't want to read a policy act, which is every argument I made in the 1AC. They say the 2NR isn't new because it's impact calculus. Impact calculus is tied to the impact, like fairness outweighs not to the internal link. They say consult tab. No, nobody gives. The entirety of the 2NR just says that they want to win, which proves it outweighs. They say fairness paradox. Fairness paradox is zero because they dropped the racism paradox. Ethan wouldn't want you to hack against them because of his scene killer, which proves it outweighs defense. It's paradoxical that it relies on anti-racist evaluation means that fairness paradox is literally zero because Ethan wouldn't want you to hack against him because of your race. But either way, drop a reason why fairness itself is zero. Structural fairness outweighs things like speed, coaches, money, all over determine fairness, and proves that fairness is unattainable inside of a debate round. They say cooperation is straight turn. No, drop that. They drop that. We don't care about double down. They say half is racist. This is zero. This is just zero.
Good debate.
Good debate. Good debate.